Divine greetings, ones and zeros, zeros and ones, boys and girls that are now men and women, kings and queens, gods and goddesses, spiritual beings of this divine matrix. Today, in this share, I want to talk about some more about angels and demons, particularly as it relates to masculinity and femininity, and share an experience that I had coming through the schizophrenic break, through the mental break. This also has to do in relation to 666. So I'll start with 666. There are many interpretations of 666. And one of the interpretations that I like, one of them that resonates with me, that I saw in the, not directly in the psychosis, however, I have an appreciation for it, is the 24 hours. If you add 2 and 4, that is 6. And 60 minutes, that's another 6. And 60 seconds, that's another 6. That is adding up, or when you put them together, you get 666. 24 is 6, 60 minutes is 6, and 60 seconds is 6. Now, I point that out to the reality that as we recognize the hours of the day, or what we call a 24-hour day, there's no such thing, or it's not a constant 24 hours. Even though we measure it with our clocks as if it's 24 hours, it's not a constant 24 hours. The days are not 24 hours. The days are either more than 24 hours or less than 24 hours. Or maybe there is a moment when it's exactly 24 hours. However, it is not 24 hours all the time. However, our clocks and our minds have a tendency to want something fixed. So we, as a collective group of humans, we agree on 24 hours. Or even if we don't agree consciously, we at least collectively in our consciousness, some of us unconsciously, agree to the 24-hour clock. Now, I'm pointing to that because now it's scientifically proven. It's been scientifically proven for some time that this is an illusion. Even though we measure time at a 24-hour clock, it is an illusion. It's not real. We use it to facilitate our understanding. Now, for those of us who forget that it is an understanding to be had, and we stick firmly that there's 24 hours in the day, then we're in a state of illusion. If you don't cognitively, consciously make yourself aware that it is not 24 hours in a day, then you are in some type of an illusion. And this is something you can go verify on Google. It's now readily available in this age, the age of the Aquarius. This is the age of technology, the age of information. So these kinds of information, should a person desire to look for it, it's readily available. And that's also if you trust in scientific evidence, because scientific evidence, for the most part, is based in physicality, and physicality itself is an illusion. Now, to expound a little bit more, one of the books that we use collectively as humans is the Bible, the Bible. And the Bible, in the Bible, it says 666 is the mark of the beast. And let him who has understanding understand. So 666 being the mark of the beast, and as it represents time, as I just said, 24 hours, 6, 60 minutes, 6, 60 seconds, 6, that is 666. It points to the physicality of the human being. It points to the carnality of the human mind. And as the physicality and the carnality of the human mind tends to want a destination, it tends to want something fixed, something that is never going to change, so that it feels comfortable in trusting that it knows something, in believing that it knows something. And this is an ego stance, because the ego is always looking to protect. That which we call the demon is always looking to protect. So I start with that part of the explanation because I want us to understand that physicality is an illusion. And this was challenging for me before I had a certain understanding. Before I had my mental break, it was challenging for me. And even sometimes now, I have to take a deep breath and inhale the non-physical to remind myself that it is the non-physical that is actually allowing me to be. It is the spirit which is allowing me to be. So now I go into masculinity and femininity. Now, masculinity and femininity are aspects of the same one love energy. Masculinity and femininity are one of the same love energy. They're different aspects of the same love energy. And then love being the original or the source energy, then there is fear energy, which is the illusion. Fear energy is synonymous with physicality. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So fear is an illusion. Love is reality. Love is the only reality where truth dwells. So now looking at masculinity and femininity as dual aspects of the love energy, there is a counterpart to masculinity and femininity in the fear energy, which is ego, or you could say misappropriated masculinity, or intuition, or you could say misappropriated intuition. So that explanation or that understanding really helped me coming through a particular part of my psychosis, because I was constantly blaming myself. I found myself blaming myself for having a judgment. So one day, when I was a lot less healed, and I was just getting used to, or just getting an understanding of how it is that I'm hearing the voices that I'm hearing, and appreciating my voice versus the outside voice. So in hearing my voice, one day I heard an argument. There was an argument within me. My mouth wasn't speaking, or my mouth wasn't moving, my physical wasn't moving. I was simply hearing auditorily within my mind, within my soul, an argument. And that argument was between the masculine and feminine. And it wasn't just between the masculine and feminine. Let me be specific. It was between the misappropriated masculine and the misappropriated feminine. It was between the demon, so to speak, and the angel, right? So the angel and the demon, I could witness the argument. I could witness the battle within my soul between the angel and the demon. And it was me, it was I am that I am, who was in observation of this battle within my soul, this argument within my soul, because it's a conversation. However, it was a battle. There were no swords. Words were the swords. Our language was the swords that was being used to fight this battle. And the shield, you could say, is the truth and love. So as I was loving myself and witnessing this battle take place, as opposed to simply being in a state of confusion, because that's how I would be before. I would be in a state of confusion, hearing the battle in my mind and blaming myself that I'm crazy. So in this instance where I'm hearing the argument, where there's the battle taking place, I'm having no judgment. I'm simply observing and listening to the battle, watching, you could say, the battle take place. And this was the misappropriated masculine and misappropriated feminine. So as I'm talking, I'm now going to put it into another dimension of understanding where the misappropriated masculine is synonymous with the misappropriated ego, and the misappropriated feminine is synonymous with the misappropriated intuition. So now I'm going to use the words ego and intuition. So this argument that was taking place between the angel and the demons, right, was the ego wanting to keep the disrespect that it had taken in previous years to protect me, and the misappropriated intuition saying no more, and confessing that she had given bad instructions. So let me explain this a little bit more too, because the misappropriated intuition or intuition is responsible for giving instructions, and the ego is responsible for carrying out those instructions. So you could say, let me see, another way I would say it is the intuition, which is the instructions, is the receptive. As you receive from source, you're continuously receiving, and the misappropriated ego is the creative. So the misappropriated intuition, this is the bad, this is the fear, because I'm using fear energy at this moment because I'm being fearful. This is a battle that is taking place even between the fear fractions within my soul, as the love fraction is watching myself have the conversation in a fearful way. And when the opportunity arises where within me I humble myself, I humble my ego, then the love energy can give good instruction as to what else to do. But anyways, trustfully you're following what I'm saying. And if you're not following, if what I'm saying is not coherent with what you're understanding, or maybe I'm not being coherent, please like, comment, subscribe, share, because this is what I'm doing. I'm sharing, I'm rewiring my mental as we speak, trusting that in me being vulnerable, you can accept my vulnerability, and in return, I can accept your vulnerability. So now going back to the battle between the angel and the demon. So the demons were battling. The demons being the misappropriated ego and the misappropriated intuition. The misappropriated intuition was confessing. The misappropriated intuition was confessing. You could say Eve, right? The one who Christianity says gave Adam the apple, was confessing that she did give Adam the apple, right? So the intuition gave the ego the apple, the instructions. As the intuition gave the ego the instructions, the intuition was feeling pain. This is a part of the instructions. Within me, I was feeling bad. I was feeling hurt. I was feeling pain for something that I had done. And the ego came in and protected me. The ego came in and said, and hid that that hurt. An example is hid my feeling of abandonment. So it lied to me. You're not abandoned. Your father did not leave you at 4 years old. When my father did leave me at 4 years old, right? The ego made up a story. He's gonna be back. There's nothing wrong with the family. Everything is good. However, now my intuition is saying, no more. I'm confessing. I gave you the instructions that I'm hurting because my father left, and you, the misappropriated ego, did not do what you were supposed to do because you were fearful. Instead of letting me hurt and humble yourself and allow the divine ego to allow the intuition the true intuition to come through and soothe me and say everything is okay. And so I will have the understanding that, hey, your father abandoned you. It hurt in the moment, but I would have known better then. Instead of that being done, the misappropriated ego hid it, covered it. And now the misappropriated intuition is confessing that she did give good instructions, but the ego, the misappropriated ego, hid that instructions to soothe in fearful energy. Trustfully, that is understandable. If not, you can replay it and see what it is. So then the ego now, once it did that, once the misappropriated ego hid that hurt, it's been there. That's the trauma, that's the wound. It's been there since I was 4 years old up until I was about, I believe I was 30. I was 30 something when my partner and I was having the conversation, and she pointed it out to me, and I still didn't want to accept it. So I know I was about 40, let's say 40, when I finally accepted it, that I was abandoned by my father. And thus began my healing journey for that particular wound and that particular trauma. So that's when the angel within me finally defeated that demon. That's when the angel within me finally accepted or finally sat on the throne of abandonment. And when I say sat on the throne of abandonment, sat on the throne that was abandoned, and therefore my angel for my healing was present in that throne. So I'm no longer abandoned. My 4-year-old in this aspect was no longer abandoned by my true self, my angelic self, my higher self, my benevolent self is now sitting on the throne of that trauma about being abandoned by my father. So that is an example of masculine and feminine, right? Because it's the masculine and feminine energy that facilitates the instructions and the doing. So once again, for my own sake, the instructions is the feminine. The bad instructions is the misappropriated feminine. The doer is the ego. The one who does bad things is the misappropriated ego. So what I'm conveying is that I was in observance of the misappropriated ego and misappropriated intuition battling between themselves. And as they were battling between themselves, instead of me being fearful and seeing which one would win, and as opposed to and seeing which one would win and put my 2 cents or put the rest of my energy there and become fearful, I watched it. Because I was being the observer, I was being my divine self, watching what was happening. And as soon as my misappropriated ego humbled itself, because I was giving it the attention that it wanted in the right way, as soon as it humbled itself, then I could console myself and sit on my throne and be healed. And it's a constant healing process. In that moment, that battle was won. Now it's a constant war, because the energies of fear is always at war. The energies of fear is constantly going within me, and I'm constantly experiencing other people's energy. Because when someone tells a lie, when someone who is also abandoned reflects that to me as if they're not abandoned, then my wounds pick it up. And as my wounds pick it up, then I have to quiet myself again, because I hear the voices saying, we want to do what they did. We want to go back to the ways that they are living, because they're living in a state of unconsciousness. They're living in a state of unawareness. They're living in a state of trauma. And as they live in that state of trauma, the misappropriated ego wants to go back to that state, because in that state, it had control. Now, in my state, in the healed state of that particular wound, my divine ego has control. And when the divine ego has control, source has control, because the divine ego does not act unless it is instructed to do so by the divine instruction, the divine source, the divine feminine. The divine ego is the divine masculine. The divine instructions is the divine feminine. The divine source, I should say, the divine source. The divine source is also infinite. The divine source is abundance. The divine source is wealth. The divine source is longevity, is superior. And all positive affirmations. The divine source is light. And that, trustfully, I have rewired my mental in exposures adequate, so ones and zeros can receive this message. And as usual, like, comment, subscribe, share if you dare, and each one, reach one, teach one. Ashe. Amen and namaste.